I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here with Dr. Iris Freelander, and today we'd like to talk to you about harmony and divine order. In the next few minutes, we're going to talk about how important it is for us to see harmony and divine order despite the appearances of life, and that's a big challenge, isn't it?
It certainly is, because we've progressed to the point where everyone is wondering what's going on here, and people are giving conscious thought to what's happening in the world. And we each have our own opinion of what factor of our life is wrong and what factor of our life is not in order. But everything is happening for a purpose, and it's according to how we accept what's happening as to whether or not we have harmony and divine order in our life, not what's happening around us.
That's important to understand, isn't it?
Yes.
So many times we believe that if things were better in the world or
Mm-hmm.
in our home life or in our work or in our circle of friends, we'd be happier. And in fact, the happiness or the harmony has to do with us, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does entirely. And also, how we feel about circumstances in our life affects the people around us. And we can see that in children. If we spend time with children, I mean, an appreciable amount of time, not just a hello, goodbye time. And when we're calm and peaceful, they stay calm and peaceful. And it's a wonderful thing to see children serene and happy and playing nicely instead of being chaotic. But it's because of the people around them as to whether or not they respond. They're like a sponge, and absorbing the energies around them. But we're all like that to a more or less extent, but all to a very great extent. And we can either allow the chaos around us to affect us or not. It's a decision that we have to make, and then we have to know what to do to protect ourselves against that. And the main thing we have to do is just breathe deeply and center ourselves with divine energies. And then we don't let the chaos around us touch us. And to not place blame, but to just see what's happening and evaluate it, but not be vindictive in putting blame out there. And I'm sure that you could think of many more things, but to me, those are some of the more important ones.
Placing blame is a real way that we short circuit harmony, isn't it?
Yes, yes, because when we put blame on someone else, we're like sending daggers out instead of just smoothing. And so when we accept that yes, they've done that, but and it's not pleasing to us, but to not be overly emotional about it. And when we live from our higher state of consciousness, we're living with divine order, and we're creating serenity and order around us. But when we allow the problems of life to get to us, and then we react negatively, then we're living from the emotional body. And so it would behoove us to try and live from the spiritual aspect of being all the time.
Divine order, of course, for in New Thought and metaphysics, we use that term a lot. But in conventional theology and religious and spiritual groups, it's not used that widely. But our philosophy and belief is that despite the appearances of life, no matter what's going on, I mean, we may see chaos, we may see unhappiness and fighting and arguing, but we believe that there is undergirding that. In reality, divine order is the reality of life, isn't it? And if we're able to claim the reality of divine order in the face or the appearance of inharmony and chaos or difficulty, we're able to bring about within our own selves a reality of serenity and a realization of that divine order. And as you said, that comes from operating from our higher level of consciousness, which is something that we need to each individually work at.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was very clearly and beautifully expressed. That we are. It's like there's a level here. Is what I was seeing as you were speaking, and we keep that smooth level when we're living from our higher state of being, but then we're dipping and making waves when we're not. And that's a very good analogy of life, and how when we keep our cool and don't overreact and stay detached. And detachment to me is a very beautiful word, and I think that's the keynote for this year. The first of every year, I ask, "What's the keynote for the new year?" At New Year's time, and that's the word I received this year. And then I always observe how much that comes up. Whatever word I hear, that is the keynote for the year, then I'm sure it's just my guardian angel telling me this is what you need to do. But it seems to me that as a teacher, then I need to tell others that same thing, and very often it would apply to everyone. But detachment is so important in our lives. And as we stay, and it's more important now because there's more going on in the world, and we get all this flood of information from our internet, from the TV, from the newspapers, from the magazines. I mean, we have so much chaos presented to us in various ways that if we don't consciously keep our cool, then we get pulled into it. But when we stay just harmonious, and then we are able to live the way we want to live, the way we wish to live, and manifest in the world the way we wish to manifest. But if we get caught up in the problems and the exigencies, then we're not able to. Then we're living again from our emotional body, from the emotional aspect of our own beinghood, in a distorted way.
Right. And I think that's important that as, excuse me, you had mentioned that we get so much information from the internet and television and newspapers. It's true. And as we get that information and we operate from our emotional level, we get so agitated and we begin to believe that that's the truth and reality.
Yes.
When in fact, that's the truth and reality on this human plane of existence. But there's a spiritual plane of existence that is undergirding, that's the term that we use a lot, undergirding all of this with divine order. And if we can then read the paper, get the information, and keep ourselves centered in this harmonious place of divine order, we can see what we're seeing with human eyes, and we know that in the physical it is true, but we're able to transcend that in our thinking and in our way of feeling and responding. And so then we begin to operate at a different emotional level, don't we?
Yes.
Well, we're still, we're able to operate from our higher self or higher consciousness and allow that higher consciousness to connect with our emotional body. And when that happens, our emotional body is going to react totally differently to circumstance than it does if we just allow the emotion to take complete control.
Yes, and it's a conscious act, isn't it? We have to be aware of how we're reacting or not reacting, and be aware of how we let problems bother us, and not only the worldly things, but within our own family, within our workplace, within the people who help us in a professional way with wherever we need help, medical, post office, wherever it is. Wherever we're dealing with other people, if we are cool and calm, then they are too. And it's like a ripple that just flows out more and more and more. And we've all seen cartoons and things about that. But we need to put some emphasis on it each in our own lives. And we are doing a disservice to the world when we don't stay calm and peaceful. And we're creating dissonance in our own way when we are not detached, and when we do react to the things around us. And just worrying is not, I heard someone say, when you say you worry, it's showing lack of faith. Well, that is, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when we worry, we do create a level of inharmony, and we do detach from divine order, and we do begin to operate from a purely emotional standpoint, because of course worry is the expectation or the anticipation of something that may never come to pass, and yet we allow it to affect us so extensively.
Yes, and we all get caught up in that at one time, and we all get caught up in it, and we can look at our own lives and see when we have gotten caught up in it. There was fairly recently that happened to me. There was a young man who was helping me, who was at my home, and he was helping me with something, and he said, "I'm going to run over and get something to open the pipes, the drain pipes, because that upstairs bath is not draining very well." And so, and he was supposed to be at the airport to meet his family at 10 o'clock that night, and this was about 7:30 or 8. Well, and he's new in this town, so he didn't come back very soon, and I was very concerned. So I was amazed at myself later because I overreacted, not to him, but in my own mind. And so I kept looking out the window to see if his car was driving up, but I didn't know what kind of car he drove because he's from out of town and he was just here very briefly, and then his family was meeting him here. And so, and then I was so worried that when he drove up, I ran out front to say, "I'm glad you're home. I'm glad you're back." And I thought, well, that certainly wasn't a very highly spiritual act on my part to be so worried. But we all fall into that, don't we?
We do. And it's a lack of faith, but it
Yes.
also is a part of our buying into this inharmonious reality where, in fact, harmony was surrounding him, divine order was in the midst of where he
Exactly.
was.
Yes, and I said, well, I was very concerned because I said, I don't know your family, what plane your family is coming in on, so I wouldn't be able to meet them if something happened to you. And I don't even know what kind of car you drive, so I wouldn't know if I call the police what kind of car. And he was looking like, call the police. And he said, well, when I was here once before, they had wonderful music over at Borders Books in the evening. So I stopped by there to just to see if they still had that music. And then he ran in another store to get something else because he was there. And so he had very logical reasons. There was no reason for my concern. And that's a very good example of how we go through life, allowing things to creating mountains out of molehills, because we in our own minds just get caught up in this whole thing. Where if we just let everyone live their own lives and not get so putting our own consciousness out into other people's lives, then they're better off and so are we.
And in that way, we are able to create the sense of harmony within ourselves. And as you said a few moments ago, very importantly, we're able to allow that to affect the people around us in a very positive way, because we do.
Yeah.
And then even in the global way, and one of the things we touch on so often here is the global consciousness. And of course, we know what happens when a huge number of people become inharmonious. It does affect the larger consciousness of population.
Yes, and then we pick up that energies, and we have to really be detached in order to not let it affect us, because we can see that in various ways. And where there's rioting and demonstrations, people get caught up in the mass consciousness, don't they?
Absolutely. And that aspect of our being able to be affected by that which is around us is so much a part of our human condition. And what we're talking about so often is to transcend our humanness into our spiritual and psychological dimension, so that we're able to transcend what we're seeing in the physical sense.
Yes, and it's very helpful if we realize that we're not just a physical person and a emotional person, but we have the spiritual aspect of our beinghood is more pertinent and more strong than the other aspects. We just have to go there and be there.
What we say so often is that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience or a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. And yet so often it seems that we think of ourselves as humans who are trying to have spiritual or psychological experiences when we're much more than that. We'd like to pause at this point in the program and offer you the opportunity to receive some literature so that you can continue to study the ideas and concepts we're sharing with you.
We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the New Thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
We certainly wouldn't want to get away without talking about meditation, would we? And I don't think there's a program that we talk or that we present that we don't touch on the subject. Meditation really is an opportunity for us to create within ourselves, or not create, but to claim within ourselves, because it's always there, a harmonious state, and also to center ourselves in divine order, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. And anyone who doesn't meditate, or they don't take the time to, if they have in the past meditated, might just try doing it every morning, and then to center themselves throughout the day. and see if their day doesn't go better. And if they don't live with greater harmony throughout the day, and then they sleep better at night, because I know that's true for me, and I'm sure it is for you.
Yeah, harmony and divine order do make us, and I think, while we talk about psychological and spiritual aspects of
Hmm.
life so often, we in New Thought spend a lot of time talking about mind, body, spirit. And the physical aspect is something that we could touch upon. That meditation, of course, does have a physical
Hmm.
manifestation, but being centered in a harmonious way and claiming divine order can bring us health, can't it? And we all know what inharmony and what a lack of divine order can do in terms of our physiological bodies. It can increase our blood pressure,
Yeah.
damage our kidneys, cause us ulcers, and all manner of disease. And of course, there are many theories and ideas about the disease, the causes of disease, and we won't necessarily go into all those. But certainly, inharmony and chaos do have a cost in our physical bodies, don't they?
Yes, they do. And then they create stress in certain aspects of the body, and different parts of the body relate to different emotional impacts. And so then when that stress continues and continues and continues, then it manifests in a physical illness. And those who are psychic can see that illness in the higher body, the etheric body, before it manifests in the physical. And that's how they're able to tell people guard against whatever it is they see that people need to guard against.
Mhm.
And then the astrological aspect of our, when we have our horoscopes drawn up, and the signs we're born under, the sun sign and the moon and the ascendant sign, well, that tells us where illness is apt to strike our bodies. And a lot of people scoff at that, but it's helpful
Mhm.
because it tells us what to guard against. I know years ago, many years ago, there was a Dr. Bishop Wadley here in Long Beach who gave very wonderful information about horoscopes and about palmistry for that matter. But he told me, because you're an Aries, you need to guard against your liver ever having a problem, and don't ever drink alcohol over much, and just drink very little. And so I think that was very good information for me. And he told me more information about the typical Aries body structure. It
Mhm.
affects the head and the liver. So if we know those things and can guard against them, then it's like insurance, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, we can see people just in their countenance and in
Mm-hmm.
their demeanor who are living a centered life in
Mm-hmm.
divine order and harmony, can't we? And we can also see people who are stressed and angry
Mm-hmm.
and who are in turmoil all the time. And it really shows in our person, doesn't it? And also has to do with longevity of life. And when we
Yes.
think about people who, when we think so many, and one of the wonderful things about New Thought and metaphysics is so many of our people live to be ripe old ages, and they're so radiantly healthy into their 80s and 90s. And that comes about through a centering in the presence and power of God, claiming of harmony and divine order in all aspects of life. But when I think of those people, many of whom we've known, who, and hopefully we will be one of them,
Yeah.
will be those that live into late life with such radiance of health,
Mm-hmm.
they are almost all, well, they are always people who are living centered in harmony and peace. And the people who have the untranquil lives, the
Mm-hmm.
inharmonious lives, I mean, I can't think of a 95-year-old that's in radiant and dynamic health that is full of chaos and turmoil.
That's
For the
true.
most part, they're not for the most part, they are centered,
Mm-hmm.
they are harmonious in mind, body, and spirit. They are positive in their outlook, and that really translates into this long life and into this dynamic vitality.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also can look at young people, and we've all seen young people in their 20s and 30s who look much older because of the stress that they have in their lives. And yet we see many younger people who are vibrantly healthy
Mm-hmm.
because of the way that they are able to operate from the standpoint of mind, body, spirit, and the harmony and divine order and serenity that they claim
Mm-hmm.
in their lives. And it's true at the beginning and at the end and all through life. And we can always see those people who are more serene, those people whose lives are more harmonious, always have a more radiant and positive countenance and a sense of well-being, don't they?
Yes, and they don't blame others for the vicissitudes of life, and they applaud others for when they're doing well, and they don't expect overmuch from people because they realize that people are doing the best they can overall. And so they're not judgmental, and they're loving and thoughtful and giving and kind. And I was just thinking about different older people I've known. I had one friend who lived to be 105, and Elsie was just a wonderful human being, and just the kind you just described. And another lady lived to be a friend of mine lived to be 99. So, and she was in that same category. So, as you said, these people are they're forgiving, they're non-judgmental, and they're loving, and we can all be that, and we can all aspire to be that. Just aspiring to be that makes a big difference in our surroundings and in the people around us. And the people around us are very happy. I heard once you can judge the goodness of a person by how happy the people around them are. And isn't that a good criteria?
Wonderful, wonderful criteria.
Yes. And so as we are just happy and serene and harmonious in our surroundings and with the people around us, then we are a positive influence in the lives of others. And you mentioned meditation, and we didn't go very far with that, but that to me is one of the most essential parts of that. And I know in my own life, I've been meditating for more than 55 years, and I don't know how my life would have been if I hadn't meditated throughout those years, because like everyone else I know, I've had a lot of problems in life. I've had a lot of tragedy in my life, and we all have those things. We're not any of us singled out, but as we look at our own lives and see what point in our lives we've coped with whatever happened that's unpleasant, and it might be our own personal sickness or someone else's, or it might be any number of things, but whatever we're faced with, then we can face it better if we do meditate. And at the Edgar Cayce Foundation, they discovered that 30 seconds of meditation changed the endorphin level in the human body. And so isn't that a good thing to know?
It's a wonderful thing to know, and it really says a lot about this mind-body-spirit connection that we talk so much about, and that our bodies really are an outpicturing of our souls, aren't
Yes,
they?
yes. And so when we think of it like that, it gives us a measure of humility if we have managed to stay well put together, because and there are people who are desperately ill, but they still look very serene, and that's that same category. It's in a karmic way they've needed to have these things happen in their lives, but then it's their choice of how they react to those problems of life. And so I know I've seen as many very serene, ill people as I have belligerent looking, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that serenity of demeanor and countenance, and that serenity of inner being is something that simply radiates to others, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does. And it's a service we can offer to the world in honor of God, because it's what we're doing is projecting the spiritual aspect of our own beinghood into the world, and that God part of ourselves. And there is a flame of God within every person. And with some it might be more, and some it might be less. But as we live the life to the highest of our ability, and that means being non-judgmental and loving others and giving love. And that's love is something that we often think of as an emotion, but love, Jesus, our divine way shower, taught love, and that's all he taught. That was the basis of all he taught. The Master John said that, and he was being a teacher. There were students coming to him to say, what was Jesus like, and what did Jesus teach? And he said, love. And they said, well, you've told us about love. And he said, well, that was it. That's what it was. And that's what we can emulate. We can each love others and love whatever is in our lives, but without accepting the negative aspect, but to just love others. And I think that's what the people who live with harmony and divine light around them, well, that's what they're doing, isn't it?
Absolutely. They're embracing that reality of life. And it comes back to what we talk about so often, and it is a choice, isn't it? We always have a choice. We always have free will. And it's our choice whether we want to be centered in harmony and divine order, or whether we want to be centered in the negative aspects of life. And all of us are surrounded, and it doesn't matter. And you just touched a few moments ago on a real important fact, and it doesn't matter who we are or what we do or how faithful we are or anything else. Every one of us are going to have lives that are combinations of laughter and pain.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be tragedy that's going to visit all of us. And so if we're able to cope in those times in a very harmonious way, if we're able to claim divine order in the midst of those times, that's when we can really be empowered and strengthened to be the real dynamic children of God that we're created to be.
Yes, and we can just thank God that we have the strength to endure whatever it is we need to endure, and know that we have inner help. We have all the help from the inner that we need, and it's there all the time. And as we cope with our problems in that way, in so that we're accepting, yes, this has happened, but it's not going to touch me. It's not going to touch my vital aspect of being, the spiritual aspect of my being. And it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
All the problems, none of the problems of life have to touch us in the spiritual, in our true, deep, inner core self. It can only touch the physical aspect of our bodies, of our lives, and financially with our surroundings and various ways, but all in the physical aspect of being. So when we're meditating and when we're praying and when we're looking to those higher, when we look to the higher aspect of being, then we're able to live life as we wish in our higher moments that we could.
Mm-hmm. And our higher moments is where we need to be and we want to be. And every one of us want to be at the height of our life experience all of the time. And by living a harmonious life centered in divine order, we can claim the reality and the truth of who and what we are. And we hope that the ideas and concepts that we've shared with you have been useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Mike and Iris would like to extend a cordial invitation for you to join them this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. for our weekly celebration service at the beautiful Seaport Marina Hotel at the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and 2nd Street, adjacent to the Marina Pacifica and Marketplace shopping centers. There will be a guided meditation, prayers, spirited music, and a dynamic, life-changing New Thought message. Please join us this Sunday. You will be warmly welcomed into the company of like-minded, positive, and uplifting people. And remember, whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can attain it through confident living.